raiding and pillaging innocent Saxons, drinking till you fall over, Viking rap battles, and the glory of Valhalla. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is Ubisoft's latest release in the Assassin's Creed franchise. Is their latest title worth picking up? Let's find out. If you have any questions about the game that I don't answer in this video, please put them in the comment section down below and I'll happily get back to you. And also, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to subscribe. I'll have plenty more Valhalla content coming soon. Let's go. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is out on November 10th for Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, PC, and PlayStation 4, with the PlayStation 5 to release a couple of days after when the console does come out. One of my favorite things about any Assassin's Creed game is climbing to the highest point of a tower and synchronizing, seeing the world laid out before you and all the beautiful vistas and scenery for you to explore. Valhalla has this and more, from the cold, snowy mountains of Norway to the overflowing green hills of England. Valhalla isn't the best looking game you're going to play this year, but it's still completely stunning, from the detail in the character's armor and the view distance allowing you to see everywhere in every direction for that sense of immersion that really draws you in. That is, when the game runs smoothly. I have an RTX 2080 and an AMD 3800 XT, and during my playthrough on PC, I've had a difficult time maintaining a constant 60 FPS throughout my playthrough. According to the PC specs, I should be able to run the game on high or very high with the hardware that I have. Maintaining a constant 60 FPS, even staying above 30 FPS, has been difficult in some of the large siege battles or the raids that will occur. However, the latest patch that came out on Saturday, which is the launch patch that you will play on, this patch has resolved most of these issues. However, it's still worth calling out so that you are aware. If you are planning to pick up Valhalla on the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4, I'd suggest to look up performance on that hardware first before taking the leap of faith, get it, and picking up this game. Valhalla is your typical Ubisoft open world game, which you will be accustomed to by this point, with many icons to go and tick off and to explore in your longship. There is no ship combat here, however, compared to Odyssey, as the longship basically serves as a travel system through the rivers of England. Valhalla's icons feel less like meaningless tasks to check off a list and more about progressing Ivor and having fun side experiences. The icons you find throughout the world are split into three categories. Gold is wealth, blue is mysteries, and white is artifacts. The most basic of these is the artifacts, as they are simple collectathons for tattoos and Roman artifacts. Gold will have you chasing resources and materials to upgrade your settlement and to upgrade Ivor with gear and weapons that you can find throughout the world. The most interesting of these is the mysteries. Mysteries range from many different things, from world boss fights to mushroom tripping puzzles, a quiet moment of meditation, building cairn rocks, and my favorite of these, which is these random world events that give you a little side story ranging from 5 to 10 minutes of gameplay. Each one of these encounters is completely different to the previous encounter, and the game doesn't tell you specifically how to resolve these scenarios. These moments are some of the best Valhalla has to offer and often had me laughing out loud. In one, I helped a son whose father had covered himself in pig poo and refused to wash. In another, I came across a dispute between two brothers over their barley farm. They asked for my input. Who should get the most profit out of each of these brothers? I suggested that they share it equally, which apparently was a terrible idea. Neither of them was happy, so I suggested that they fight it out, which didn't resolve anything. So I was speaking to their family, and they mentioned the barley silo and how they wished it didn't exist. So, using my Viking intuition, I burnt it down. And that made them happy, and that resolved the world event. There are plenty of little encounters like this where you can have funny little interactions which just break up the typical gameplay that I found so enjoyable. There are other activities you can partake in as well, like drinking, fishing, the Olag dice game, which is funner than it ought to be, and there is a lot that you can do and characters to talk to throughout your settlement as well. As you progress the main story of the game and explore the regions of England, you will advance your settlement and have different characters there that you can interact with and grow, as well as different activities such as the hunter's lodge or the fishing hut that you can get, and all of your customizations for Ivor and your longship will also come from these locations as well. The settlement I found really enjoyable to return to on a regular basis, both to upgrade Ivor's equipment, which can be done at the blacksmith, and just generally to upgrade my settlement. You know, you are spending a lot of your time collecting resources, and you can spend these resources to upgrade your settlement. So I was constantly wanting to return here and build new structures and really take in the environment of the settlement itself. The combat in Valhalla is deeper than I expected, from the dodge and parry and ability system that you may have seen in Odyssey. Each weapon type you will find throughout the world as well has its own attack animations from heavy to light attacks, as well as an offhand attack if you wield it in your offhand. You can dual wield anything, even two-handed weapons if you do unlock the passive in your skill tree. This gives a lot of freedom in how you choose to tackle combat, as you will be finding various weapons throughout your playthrough. Not the same amount that you would have expected in Odyssey, as this is a limited amount of weapons that you will find, as it's more based around upgrading the weapons that you already have rather than finding new ones that you can use in combat. But the positive here is that the gear you find all has a specific purpose based on the playstyle you're looking for, whether it is the bear being melee focused, the raven for stealth, and the hunter for ranged. As you do develop your skill tree, you can branch out into each one of these three branches, but it's better off to specialize in one of the different lines. There are plenty of different enemy types to fight with these skills that you will find. Each will have their own mechanics and attacks that you'll learn as you play, and as you do get further and further into England, they do introduce new elites for you to take on, so you are constantly learning different mechanics from some of these different characters. There is a fair share of bosses throughout the game as well, from optional world bosses, and at the end of each of the game's main story arcs, there is bosses there as well. Difficulty wise, the game is pretty easy on the normal difficulty. If you want a bit of a challenge, you should be looking at some of the harder difficulties for combat specifically, as there is different difficulty settings for stealth and exploration, with stealth also having the option to enable a one-hit assassination on all targets. I thoroughly enjoyed the combat, as well as there is some real depth to the system and the different combat scenarios that the game has to offer. It keeps it feeling fresh rather than just the same monotony of fighting enemies, from the small scale raids to the large, big castle sieges that you can bring all of your men and charge through these castles, ramming through walls and the various things that you have to do to take on the castles. There is some freedom here as well. Before you do initiate a raid or take a castle, you can stealthily assassinate the guards and sabotage their equipment, so when you do initiate that raid or the castle siege, it is easier for you to actually take over that site. Just like the protagonist of Odyssey, Ivor isn't a trained assassin. You will get the Assassin's Blade pretty early on and learn things like the Leap of Faith, but stealth and the assassinations take much more of a prominent role in Valhalla than it does in Odyssey, especially having the Assassin's Blade so early on. Valhalla also has the return of a lot of the social stealth mechanics in the game, as well as a new distrust area, where in towns or cities that guards aren't directly hostile to you immediately. If they do see you sprinting around or doing things you shouldn't be, they will attack you. However, you can hide in plain sight in these locations by sitting on benches or wandering around with a drunk or monks and generally blending in. I didn't find myself with the need to partake in most of these stealth mechanics, as I just thoroughly enjoyed fighting people outright more than I did being stealthy and taking them out via that method. I guess I'm more of a Viking than I am an assassin at heart, but both methods of gameplay are very valid here. There is also the return of the assassin's target system from Odyssey that you will unlock with a host of characters to find and assassinate, which we can't directly show you for fear of spoilers. However, this system is here and it functions very similar to how you would expect from Odyssey. Let's take a break and talk about the sound of Valhalla.
The here and now is what matters. Our kinship, our clan, our glory.
I missed you, brother. Your clear head and your courage. We have not had enough of both in recent months.
Keep sealed tight. We must look higher up for this.
The combat has this really weighty, bone-crunching sound when you take out big enemies, which is terribly satisfying, and I really enjoyed the general combat and sounds of the big castle sieges and the raids, and it really felt like a large open-scale battle. The score here, however, is also fantastic and really feels like a true Viking epic, from the softer exploration tracks that really take part in those moments to the big battle themes that you will hear throughout the time in the castle sieges with the soft vocals as part of those tracks is really fantastic, and this is probably one of the best soundtracks of this year. I really enjoyed everything. It's excellent across the board. I loved traveling around on the river with my crew and having them sing for me. It was fantastic. Dialogue here is also really solid, although I did notice a couple of characters which seem to share the same voice actor, trying to put on different voices. These cases were few and far between, and it didn't really pull me out of the experience. It's just worth noting here, but all the main characters have fantastic voice actors, especially Ivor, both male and female. The story itself kicks off with a tight little revenge plot in Norway after Ivor is left orphaned as a child and adopted by Styrbjorn, the leader of the Raven clan. After about 3 to 5 hours of gameplay in Norway, you will leave with Sigurd, Styrbjorn's son, to find a new home in England, and the main game really kicks off from here. In England, Sigurd and Ivor travel the regions trying to create alliances with the kings and leaders of England. Each region will have its own story arc with its own characters and problems for Ivor to solve. These arcs often feel disconnected, as each of them will introduce new characters and new problems for Ivor to deal with. However, as you get further and further into the game, these actually become more of a connected single story, as these characters that you met previously on one side of the map actually start to pop up and start to be more reoccurring than that one time that you see them. Assassin's Creed Valhalla does see the return of a lot of the RPG mechanics from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, as this is still an RPG. However, the choices you make here are a lot more smaller scale than you may be expecting. You're not going to be choosing some of the big key decisions, as these scenarios play out often without your direct intervention, but each region will have a decision for you to make, and there are consequences for these decisions, and making the wrong decision can often lead to a bad situation. But these stories and these decisions are really footnotes in the overall arc. I would have liked a bit more depth in some of the dialogue and these choices that you can make, as you do often feel like a passenger in Ivor's story, especially when he or her makes a rash decision that may not necessarily be how you would have played it out. It is really Ubisoft telling the overall story here, whether you like it or not. Ubisoft is driving the car, you as the player is picking the music, if that makes sense. Even despite this, I really enjoyed Ivor as a character and their journey throughout the game. I had a ton of fun exploring the world as Ivor and just generally having these interactions with the other characters throughout the game. Ivor is a great character through and through. If you're interested in the events that occur outside of the Animus, however, there is a story here with some returning characters. However, you spend like 95% of your time inside the Animus, and this section of the game really takes a back seat until later in the game, but there is some complexities to the stories here if that's something that you're interested in. The full game isn't as long as Odyssey, but there is a ton of content here, which has learned from some of the issues with Origins and Odyssey, like Odyssey having hundreds of overwhelming quests, and most of the quests here are actually progressing the main story or those region arcs. There are a couple of side quests around your settlements, however, you won't be making as many decisions or completing as many side quests, especially those big narrative focused side quests from Odyssey. There is still plenty of content here to keep you busy throughout your playthrough. At the time of writing this review, I have played 45 hours and I still haven't seen the credits. However, I'm very confident in my opinion on the game, although if it does change after I've rolled credits, I will update that in the comments down below, so keep an eye down there. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is one of the best games I've played this year. It continues and expands upon the systems of Origins and Odyssey while adding its own new flavors. The game is definitely a buy in my eyes. If you're looking for a great new game to play on the next generation consoles at launch, this game is definitely worth picking up. Even if you're playing it on PC like I am, or one of the older consoles, if you've enjoyed Origins or Odyssey, then you're not going to be disappointed with the game that you're getting here. If you would like more Assassin's Creed Valhalla content, check out my Everything You Need to Know video breaking down everything you can expect for this game before launch, and also I'll have more content coming out in the next couple of weeks, so be sure to subscribe for that. Thank you for watching this video. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.